Good morning. Welcome. Thank you everybody for joining today. Today is July 11th, 2017. Time is 9:30 a.m. Eastern for another of this week's ACT virtual user groups sessions. Today's topic is going to be about using your ACT calendar, activities, scheduling appointments, getting everything recorded back in the history, and how it all kind of fits together so that you can follow up, keep yourself organized, and have everybody be able to see each other's calendars and be communicated and coordinated as a group. So to get started, we're looking here at an ACT contact screen, and I have my record pulled up. I'm working out of the ACT demo database, so there isn't a whole lot of demo in here, but every ACT installation does come with an ACT demo database so that you can go play around with it if you'd like. But here's my contact record, and so if I wanted to schedule activities with a contact, such as Stephen here, well, first I can look at my calendar. On the left-hand sidebar here, we can switch between contacts and calendar. Your calendar view, a pretty basic view here. There is different ways that you can view your calendar. You can look at the daily calendar view to see one day only, work week view. This is my personal favorite. Probably the one I see most people work out of most of the time. There's also a weekly view that includes Saturday and Sunday. So the work week is just Monday to Friday and focuses on 8 to 5. The weekly view will just show all day from Monday all the way Saturday and Sunday down here at the bottom. And the classic monthly view. All pretty straightforward. When you put activities on your calendar, they appear as blocks of time, depending on which view you're looking for, that block off your calendar, that can help you see when you might be available and free. And you can choose whose calendar you're looking at with this Select Users button. This is an important question that people ask a lot. How can I see other people's calendars? Right here, it's with the Select Users button in ACT. It will show other users of the database. You can select one, multiple, many, zero, to see how many calendars you're looking at. This is a big point of emphasis when I ask people to think about how their company manages their calendars. The most common response I get is usually Outlook. People are kind of mavericks. They have their own calendars and they manage their own time on Outlook. There are certainly ways with Exchange servers and other Outlook connected apps or companies that have shared calendars that people will be able to see each other's events and appointments, but it doesn't really give you the same kind of fine-tuned detail about where is this person right now and what are they doing today. Being able to go into ACT and view the calendar and select users and see whose calendars you're looking at can be a big benefit for that. Just be careful that if you're looking at all users' calendars and you have 8 or 20 or 50 people at your company, it could get very busy very fast with 1,000 appointments everywhere. To add new appointments to the calendar, there's quite a few ways to do it. We can do it with about 7 different buttons. My preferred method, and the one that I advise people to do, is to first look up the contact in ACT. So start by typing the last name of somebody in the lookup field to find them. This is the demo database, so I don't know anybody in here. Let's pick Judy Brown from Independent Labs, some fictional person, no doubt, or possibly a developer over at SwiftPage. If I want to schedule an activity with Judy Brown, there are 3 buttons along the top to do this. This call, meeting, and to do. All 3 of these do very much the exact same thing. It's a common misconception that this call button might phone call the person, but the tooltip that hovers up there does say schedule call, or schedule a meeting, or schedule to do. If I click on that button, then the schedule activity window appears. The only difference between call, meeting, and to do is that it pre-selects the activity type here, this first drop down. I'm putting something on my calendar. I'm scheduling an activity, so I need to choose what type of activity it is. The general accepted definitions for these things is that a call is a phone call with the person, and that a meeting would be something in person or even online. A to-do is something that you have to do on your own. A to-do might not be something that you have scheduled with the other person, but possibly send a quote or send literature to this person, or check an account. That could be a to-do that you have with them. To-dos don't normally have as much of a date and time that they're actually scheduled at, but you can also have custom activity types, and most people do. If you can think of other custom activity types that you want to be able to flag as their own separate category. We have estimates or invitations to bid, or well, geez, there could be all sorts of different things that you could have in here as a custom activity type. You can customize them from up here in the schedule menu. I'll come back to that in a moment. But first, if I want to schedule a call with Judy Brown, I can say call is my activity type, give it a date and time. Maybe I'm going to call Judy this afternoon. So I'll choose July 11th as the start date, the start time. If I choose this drop down, it actually shows me other things that I have going on my calendar here today so that I can schedule around them. Now I'll pick 1 o'clock. And then you can give your event a duration for how long you'll be busy until. If I choose this duration, for example, I'm starting at 1 and I choose 1 hour, then the end time automatically updates to 2. Or alternatively, I can choose an end time and the duration will automatically update in the reverse order. This use banner checkbox, you can mostly ignore it, or you can use it if you'd like. If you check it, then it puts the activity on your calendar in kind of a different spot up on top of the calendar day. Most people, including myself, I don't like that view. It looks like it gets hidden out of the way. If you were using all-day events, like maybe you were going on vacation for a week and you wanted to have just a banner along the top instead of blocking off the whole thing, you could use that. The reason that I said my favorite method of scheduling people from the contact view by looking them up first and then pressing the schedule button on top is because it automatically fills this menu in for you. There's a button here that says schedule with, and it automatically put Judy Brown in there. Had I done this with one of the other methods that I'll show you later, it would have defaulted to putting my name in there. And that's something to talk about here, is that who the activity is associated with. So in this case right here, I have this activity is associated with Judy. I'll be able to do easy operations when I'm viewing the activity details to see Judy's contact information. And at the end of all this, the history and associated notes that are going to go under Judy's record. That's why you want the person who you're meeting with to go in the schedule with box. If you default it to using yourself, then basically all that information goes onto your own contact record. So people wonder why I am also sometimes against the Outlook calendar. People want to use their Outlook calendar and synchronize it into Act. But Outlook does not associate your activities with a contact in this same way. It kind of puts everything onto your own calendar. Everything is associated with you. So if you have intentions to use just your Outlook calendar and sync it in, that doesn't really build the Act history in this way. It's really why I'm a strong advocate for using the Act calendar exclusively. If this activity is going to be scheduled with multiple people, then I can use this drop down over here to say select contacts. A window appears with all the contacts in the database. I can sort these columns by name, company, or email address, and I can even search for them with this box here. But if this activity was going to be with multiple people, if I'm meeting with a few people, I can select them in this left panel here, all my contacts, and use the single arrow to move them over to the right side of where they'll be with this meeting. If you use the double arrows, that moves everything at once. There's an optional checkbox to send an invitation email. If I have this enabled, then it will automatically create an Outlook email invite with all of this info, including the exact date and time, the regarding fields that I'll be filling out down here. Or you can choose not to send an invite email. The associate with, this box is grayed out, and it's actually automatically filled in based on the contact record here. We have a question in the chat. Can you select a lookup when inviting to a list? No, but you can do groups. Well, there is a current lookup for as well. If you have a lookup that you did before pressing that schedule a call button, before that window appears, you could do current lookup and it would show the currently looked up contacts in there. You can also select contacts just from groups, and then you can choose which group over here. This can help you find it a bit faster. I'm sure looking through all contacts when you have thousands and thousands of people in the database is often difficult. But if you have the columns sorted by name, you can start typing the first few characters of the last name in here, and it will jump down to there for you. So that might help you. So the associate with is going to be automatically filled in based on the company that the person has. And then the regarding. The regarding is the subject of the meeting, something that's going to be displayed on the calendar. The regarding field is just limited to 255 characters. Don't go so crazy overboard with it, but it's really just a brief subject of the meeting. This I will call test activity, meeting with Judy. At this point, I know that we've been through quite a bit here, but the only really important things to do when scheduling an activity are the type, the start time and end time, schedule with, and the regarding. These other options down here are all optional, as well as the other tabs. The resources tab is a very rarely used feature of ACT, where you can specify resources that your company might share, like if you have conference rooms or equipment rentals that might need to be in use for this meeting. People can book those. Location, nice to fill out where this meeting is going to be, whose office or address, if you want to put that in there. A priority, you can schedule things as different priorities in ACT, just so that when you're looking at your calendar, you can view and sort things based on which priority level they have. A lot of people use this to stay organized, to keep the differences between their high, medium, and low priority tasks. There's also a color. You can optionally define a color for any activity. I know many people, when I mentioned the custom activity types earlier, like estimates or installs that might be done, they will choose different activity color types for each so that the calendar looks a little bit prettier that way. And then there's also the alarms. You can have an alarm to alert yourself before any type of activity. I'll come back to the Schedule For button in a minute, but if I say OK, I just want to show where that goes. So it goes on to Judy Brown's Activities tab here on her contact record. These tabs along the bottom, one of them is Activities, and it will show all the activities that everybody in the database has scheduled with this contact. It also goes on the calendar at exactly the place and date and time that I specified. And I said that I would come back to that Schedule For option. This is all on my calendar here. If I wanted to schedule a call for somebody else, there is a Schedule For button where I can actually choose to put this activity onto Chris's calendar. So if I select Chris here, now I'm actually, it tells me you're scheduling on behalf of Chris Huffman. Very good for if you want to tell somebody else at your company that there's a phone call for them to return, or possibly an administrative assistant role might want to be scheduling on behalf of other calendars all the time. There's also a details box here if you want to fill in many activity details. Remember, the regarding field is limited on the number of characters, so the details you can type freely as much as you want. There's no limit on that. The recurrence tab, if these are going to be recurring meetings and recurring events, if you need this to happen every week or every month, you have different options for when it occurs and the dates and times. And there's also the availability. This is tied in with that resources drop-down that I mentioned earlier over here. Availability is, again, in regards to resources that might be booked in your companies, things like conference rooms, and you can kind of build a Gantt chart in here of where different resources might be used. It's a very little used feature. Okay, so we're making good progress here. So what do we do with these activities once they're on here? Again, everybody else is able to see them, and that's very well and good. But there's also in the Contacts tab, every contact has a history. And there's nothing in Judy Brown's history, because the mere act of just scheduling the activity alone is not enough to prompt ACT to record the history. The history is going to be your logbook of all your interactions with a contact over time. You'll have every email sent, every phone call, every meeting that was held. And sure, you can manually add new histories with the New History button up top here. This brings up the Schedule History window. And sometimes you do need to make a new history. If there's an event that occurs that wasn't on your calendar or kind of occurred out of the blue and you want to log that in the history as something that happened. But the calendar is tied very closely with the history list so that it really helps you automate that and that you don't have to manually create histories as often as you might think. When we view our calendar activities, we see these check boxes over here on the right side. There's kind of a list view of the day's events. It shows me my web school and my test meeting with these check boxes next to it. Those are the same check boxes that appear here on the Contact Activity tab on the left side here. And those are the same check boxes that appear here in the task list. The task list is also just your calendar. Nothing more, nothing less, except it shows all of your activities and appointments in a list view instead of a calendar view. Some people like to work out of the task list. I certainly do. Gives you a kind of line item where you can go through day by day what you have to do. You can also see other users' activities in the task list, and you can export them to Excel. So if you wanted to make an export of the current week's activities or calendars and drop that into Excel, then you can do that right from the task list here. The reason that I'm pointing these checkboxes out is because when you want to clear off an activity, if you click the checkbox, then the clear activity window appears, and it shows me right here the result. I can hit clear and say call was completed. I can add details into the box to talk about maybe what we discussed, add some details that I want to go into the history, the subject of the call, and other important notes. There's also other results for this where I can say the call was attempted, or maybe I just call left message, she didn't pick up. You can even schedule a follow-up activity with the follow-up button right here. So there's a handy-dandy follow-up button right when you're clearing it out. It really helps you with staying on top. If you know right when you're clearing this one out that you agreed to call back later in the week, I can throw something on my calendar for Friday before I forget about it, and go ahead and put that on my calendar and say schedule. It puts the follow-up activity on there. And then I can finish clearing out this activity. If I say OK, the activity gets crossed out. You can see a strike line through it. It's not deleted. Clearing the activity is not deleting it. It's just striking it out and crossing it off the calendar as being done. And if I go back to Judy's record, it's gone out of my activities list, and here it is in the history, where it shows that I have a test activity meeting. I didn't add any additional details here, but it has an exact logbook that on July 11th, 9:46, call was completed with Stephen Boulden and Judy Brown. It really kind of moves on a rolling cycle as you're using ACT to enter your contacts, using ACT to schedule your activities, clearing them off your calendar. It builds the history. Other people can look at any contact record and see all the history that's been going on. I can pull up this calendar with Judy Brown or look at her record 6 months or 6 years from now and see all the logbook of all the interactions that have ever happened for her. If you can get everybody at your company to be using your ACT contacts and calendars in this way, you are going to be in very, very good shape in terms of the reports you can pull and the types of data that you have behind. We had a great question in the chat from Brian asking, how do you delete multiple tasks? If you go to your task list, some of you that might be following along might see a very long record book that says, oh boy, I have not been clearing these off. I've just been putting them on my calendar and not clearing them, which is fine. ACT is a kind of the oddball in that way that you clear your activities. Other calendar applications like Outlook and whatnot, they just allow an event to happen and then time moves on into the future and you don't ever actually have to go back and clear it. You just dismiss it. If your task list has many activities that you want to clear at once, I go to the task list and I use Shift Select. And if you hold down the Shift key, you can select one thing at the top of the list, hold down Shift and select multiple activities at once. You can right-click on them and say Clear Multiple Activities. And if I say Clear Multiple Activities, I can say how do I want to clear these all in bulk. If I just want to say maybe everything up before July of this year I want to clear off just so that it gets added to the history. I can mark them all as completed. There's also an option to erase them if you want to delete them entirely. Erasing an activity is ACT terminology for completely deleting it. That's not clearing it off the calendar and adding it to the history. That's just full on, I might have scheduled this in error or it's canceled and we don't even want a record of that happening. But if I choose completed, then it gets saved to the history. But it's still saved to the history. You're welcome, Brian. Okay. So now that I cleared off my calendar, I've got everything on here is all checked off and cleared. It's a good way that if you're going through your week and you have a lot of different activities and you're checking them off, the task list might pop out to you as to which ones are uncleared. You're helping to build this record of all the notes and activities and histories that have happened over time. And you'll be able to have everybody at the company share each other's calendars so that everyone can see what's going on. And all the history is being recorded without having to take the extra steps of managing a separate calendar along with your history. They all kind of smooth together. I hope it was a good meeting for everybody today. I'm going to open the lines off of mute for any questions. Go ahead and speak up. Okay, well, I'd like to thank everybody for joining today. This recording will be posted on YouTube. For those of you that might be watching on YouTube, you can join us every week live at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We have a GoToMeeting invite URL that I will post in the description, as well as an upcoming schedule of the topics right underneath the YouTube video. Thanks and have a great day. Bye.